Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that. But don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's CinemAddicts episode 227. 227 episodes. I think we're going to get Anderson Cowan. If you're listening, 23 more episodes and you're going to join us, me, Bruce, and Eric for episode 250. Only 23 more episodes to go. Episode 227. I'm mentioning Anderson Cowan because I just had the pleasure of speaking, just hanging out with him. Not hanging out with him, just talking to him on the phone the other day. And it was great to hear from Anderson Cowan. We all love you here at CinemAddicts, your co-creator. And he's telling me about his Loaded for Bear documentary, about the Film Vault. So if you want to listen to some really good stuff, check out the Film Vault and go to loadedforbear.com, but Loaded for Bear is documentary.
Loadedforbear.com.
Thank you, Eric Holmes. Loadedforbear.com, and you can see what he's up to regarding that documentary. As far as this episode, it's going to be a very short episode. We're only doing one movie. We're reviewing one movie. The good news is it's a very big movie. And the other reason is we're going to very quickly talk about our collective, the CinemAddicts Top 5 of 2023. This may not be our favorite movies of the year. Our top 5 is a consensus top 5, meaning these are picks that we feel are maybe underrepresented, overlooked, that are also on the upper echelon of our favorite films of the year collectively. So we're going to talk about the big movie this week, The Promised Land. Eric has a very quick movie called Scrambled that he's going to talk about. And I'm going to time him for about 15 seconds. Eric, you have 15 seconds to talk about Scrambled, maybe 17 seconds. We'll see how fast you can go with that. But The Promised Land should be interesting, and we'll talk about the collective 5. Patreon, by the way, we actually finished Patreon. We covered the year 2008, Son of Rambo, and Bangkok Dangerous. We just got finished talking about it. Recap. Why don't you recap what we talked about, Bruce? Was it a good intellectual conversation? Should people listen to our Patreon? Yeah.
It was crazy. We all 5s. Everything was a 5-star rating. Like yes. all the movies. Try every one of us. We never had that kind of consensus before. So
I was surprised going in.
You can go listen to it if you need to, but I mean it was agreement, nothing but agreement.
Eric Holmes, Son of Rambo. Bruce and I kind of liked it. Why do you continue to talk about how much you love this movie? You've seen it twice. You might see it again. Actually, while we're recording this episode, you're actually probably watching Son of Rambo again. What made that movie one of your all-time favorites, right next to Gremlins? Is that hello?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I got Son of Rambo playing on the screen right there.
Well, we are giving a little bit of half truths and a lot of lies, 100% lies. Eric Holmes completely went against the grain and had he had a couple thoughts on Son of Rambo. They weren't very good thoughts. Bruce and I had some good thoughts on Son of Rambo. Why don't you listen to the Patreon and see what all three of us thought about that?
A break between kicking puppies, he decided to talk about Son of Rambo.
And we'll see. Look, Eric Holmes, the reason why I admire Eric Holmes so much is when we started doing movie podcasting maybe 4 or 5 years ago with Movie Mainline, I wasn't really up on my Scott Adkins movies or straight to VOD or on-demand and digital movies. I think Eric Holmes has brought a whole new dimension on my movie watching, which I really love. Bruce has not gone on that whole VOD, on-demand, Lionsgate, Saban Films sort of rabbit hole that me and Eric have gone through the last 4 or 5 years. What's the matter, Bruce? Why do you not join the dark side of these straight to like Ryan Phillippe movies and all these really interesting Jamie King's in them? Yeah.
I am older than both of you, and my movie watching time, I have to pick a little more wisely because every one of those is a few more hours out of my life.
Eric, I moved that instead of, look, we're doing this movie called The Promised Land, Mads Mikkelsen, I think it's his name. He's very high level movie. Do you think you and I should just submarine the whole thing and make Bruce watch Saban films and Lionsgate movies and just forget it, like just ignore the rest of the stuff? What do you think, Eric?
I mean, if Promised Land wasn't so good, I might agree with you, but we kind of do need to talk about The Promised Land.
Bruce, if you had to watch Dermot Mulroney and Ryan Phillippe films, Lionsgate movies with Cole Hauser, like the rich 5
Emil
six of
Hirsch.
Emil Hirsch. Yeah. Would you be okay? Would you be okay? Eric and I would be fine. How about you?
I would not be okay. I'd be shivering in the corner.
If
in a fetal
Dermot
position.
if Dermot Mulroney
I love him.
and
I love Dermot.
Cole Hauser showed up in the Promised Land, that would make it even better.
Eric is not being ironic, okay? Eric and I love these movies. Eric, are we feeding our listeners, our loyal and faithful, and sometimes, a lot of times, more insightful CinemAddicts listeners, are we feeding them poisonous cinematic drivel? Because you and I love these movies.
I think in the world of cinema criticism, you and I are drug dealers. Like we don't have to sell these movies. You want them.
And which leads me to Bruce Berkey. You are the voice of reason on this podcast.
What?
You're the voice of reason. And it's your job whenever Eric and I start going off on Scott Adkins movies being the bomb and me loving Dermot Mulroney and all of these, and Jason Patrick. Oh, we forgot Jason Patrick, Eric Holmes. You need to step in for a little bit of reason, okay? That's all I'm saying.
Well, see, if you and I are the drug dealers, Bruce is the one where we have to take a drug test, we'll have Bruce pee in a cup for us.
The designated peer. That's Bruce.
You are the designated peer, but and he's also the barker. But the designated sort of peer this month for our Patreon will be Eric Holmes. He's covering the year 1993 in February. Eric Holmes. It's only been 5 minutes since we've done the Patreon thing. So for Patreon members get to pick one of the movies we're covering for the month of February. Okay. The year's 1993. So that slot is slated for you CinemAddicts Patreon members. But this is Eric Holmes' month for cinema. Do you have any ideas of movies? You mentioned The Crow from 1993, or are you going to come up with something maybe over the week as far as...
I'll probably find something I haven't watched yet.
Very good.
It definitely won't be The Crow. I think Middle Class Film Class...
What did they say? What did Middle Class Film Class say about The Crow? Did they say?
Well, Peter Beta specifically covered that. That was one of his streaming picks for the week. He did not like it at all.
Oh,
and then I was
don't drop that beat this episode. That's your punishment. You're not dropping any beats this episode. Yes, Eric Holmes, yes.
I was kind of dying inside as I was hearing him talk about that, but
Joseph Navarro and Tyler Noe, did they come to the defense of Brandon Lee and Alex Pllus? What a great film. James,
if I remember correctly, like they hadn't seen it recently enough. And to be fair, like all the stuff Peter Beta was saying, it was like, I mean, fair, but that's kind of why I love it. So,
see, Middle Class Film Class is basically like CinemAddicts, but classier and more insightful. So, guys, you're bullying us here over at CinemAddicts, and you're making Eric Holmes die inside. Bruce, did you die inside when you? I'm sure you listen to Middle Class Film Class every single week. Did you listen to were you able to glean or listen to their review of The Crow, or do you love The Crow? Do you agree with them, or do you agree with Eric?
I'm probably more on their side. I'm not a huge fan of The Crow. Like I like Brandon Lee, but the movie is not great. It's not a great movie.
Eric Holmes' soul is, you're making him, it's leaving his body. He doesn't even believe in ghosts.
You
but
know what?
I actually right now there's something going on.
I actually listen to this. This is what I messaged Pete when I agreed with him. I said, The Crow is this guy. Well. And I took the picture of the kid that's the friend of Beavis and Butthead with the Winger t-shirt. And I said, that's The Crow.
Unbelievable. Eric, before we get to our featured, which is The Promised Land, and we're going to get to Scrambled too, do you have any final... I'm going to leave the floor to you regarding why people who haven't seen The Crow, of course, they should listen to the Middle Class Film Class and their review of it, but why is it a special movie for you? Why do you love it so much?
I just love it because of Brandon Lee. It's cheesy. It's like it, it's, I mean, the same person that did Dark City, but imagine Dark City instead of having that ridiculous performance by Kiefer Sutherland, which I retroactively like because of the Caine Mutiny court martial, because, but imagine that instead of that terrible performance, which grew to become a wonderful performance in a different movie decades later, he hit Brandon Lee. Yeah, Brandon Lee's pretty awesome. But if you don't like The Crow, just watch Rapid Fire, because that's probably his best one anyway.
Well, Rapid Fire, I believe that movie, I could be wrong. Co-starring Powers Booth. Am I wrong on this? Mm-hmm. Rapid Fire? Oh,
no, you're not wrong. It's Powers Booth.
Yeah, Bruce, you give me some credit here. Give me some love because I didn't even look at IMDb. Yeah, this is the noggin,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Asian noggin who eats tom yum goong. Tom yum goong is a reference from Bangkok.
Sharp as I don't know, a knife used by Nick Cage in Bangkok Dangerous. There you go.
Very good.
Sharp as Tom Young-goon.
Tom yum goong, very good. You one of these days we'll when we make our millions for cinematics, we're gonna go to a Thai restaurant. Tom yum goong is on me. Tom yum goong, by the way, is not served in the Promised Land because the Promised Land, starring Mads Mikkelsen, is set in 18th century Denmark, specifically, I believe, 1755. I it could be wrong, but Mads Mikkelsen, we all know what a great actor he's. I mean, you could just name what is it, Hannibal? What else? Riders of Justice. The list goes on and on regarding movies that he's great in. He's fantastic in this movie, and he plays this guy named Captain Ludwig Kallen. And Captain Ludwig is retired from the service. 25 years in, he's collecting a pension. And instead of going off and just seeing a plot of land that's farmable, he decides to go on this uninhabitable land called the Heath, set up stakes, and he plans to farm some mysterious crop that he's keeping to himself. The problem is the Heath literally is supposedly unfarmable, and even though it's the king's country, this captain is going to invest his money on the land. Everything should be okay. It's sort of a fool's errand. The problem is he's doing everything by the book, but his next door neighbor across the way is this guy named Frederick de Schinkel, and he's a merciless nobleman who will do anything in his power to pretty much get our protagonist, Captain Ludwig, off the property. First of all, the Schinkel, that land is not his. That's the land, the property of the people, it's the property of the king. And if you farm it, it becomes yours. So the captain's in the right, and this nobleman is in the wrong. And it's sort of a battle of wills between them. That's one of the elements. But ultimately, it's Captain Ludwig Kallen's just his journey into trying to make this land farmable, livable, and he wants to have a bunch of settlers come in and to make the Heath a livable community, not because he's a nice guy or a saint. He wants to become just like the Schinkel. He wants to become a nobleman because he carries himself, even though his uniforms it's ragged, even though his hands are rough and rugged from just working the earth, he sort of envisions himself as a nobleman as well. So there's a lot of elements at play. There's also some really interesting performances. Bruce and Eric will talk about them. There's a young girl who is fantastic in this movie, and she is sort of an outlier, and she becomes part of his extended family. And then there's other different characters who pop in and out of his life. We also want to mention Amanda Collin from the HBO series Raised by Wolves. She plays a woman. I forgot who plays her husband, but they're a married couple, and they're actually on Ludwig's land to help him just make the earth livable, but they have a past of their own. So that is the premise of The Promised Land. A lot to sink in. 127 minutes, epic filmmaking, only in theaters this Friday. Eric Holmes, is this movie at 127 minutes a slog? Is it worth watching in theaters? What is your overall take on The Promised Land?
No, and absolutely. This is written and directed by Nicolas Arceau. I believe that's how you pronounce it. The last movie they directed, well, the last movie they co-wrote was Riders of Justice, which is great. Last movie they directed was The Dark Tower, which is one, like, had The Snowman not come out that year, that would have been like one of the worst movies of the year. And so I'm kind of curious, like watching this movie, I'm like, what the hell went wrong with The Dark Tower? Because like Riders of Justice is great. This movie's fantastic. Like, dude knows how to crank out bangers. So what happened there? But we're not talking about the Dark Tower, just something I thought I'd bring up. But yeah, the movie's pretty fantastic. You got Mads Mikkelsen who kind of going through stuff. Like he doesn't do like a lot. Like just his acting style is like just seems stoic most of the time. But like I think it's kind of like when you watch a movie and it's nothing happens, but then like a spike of violence happens, so now all of a sudden it, kind of shakes you. That's kind of how his acting style is on. It's like, especially like towards the end when, or not towards the end, but like towards close to the end when someone's leaving, and then, his eye kind of twitches a bit, and then I start, crying like a movie podcaster, I guess. And then the Schinkel, probably one of the best villains. Like he's on the level of Percy in the Green Mile, but he's like dangerous. Like Percy's just a guy you would just want to choke the crap out of, and because he's such a worm. This Schinkel guy, Dave Schinkel, he's a worm, but he's a worm with power, and he's dangerous. Then you have the whole thing with the taters, or like I think that's what they called them, the hermits, or the group people. That
there's a whole element in the Promised Land where there's the whites, there's a people who are in Denmark, the inhabitants, and also the outliers,
so like all the political intrigue between like all them, and how all the machinations that goes together, and then of course their superstition gives way to probably one of my favorite characters in this, Anne My Moose. It was subtitled, so every time it popped up, I just kept thinking Animal Mouse, because she's cute like a mouse. But I think when we were talking like off air, Bruce mentioned a Pemzam. When Bruce watched it before I did, he mentioned Pemzam, and he was not wrong. Love
it's like
and
foul mouth Pemzam.
Yeah, Pemzam, who plays the girl that Eric was talking about, she becomes part of that captain's. She becomes an important part of the captain's life. So that is played by Melina Hagberg, and she's fantastic in this movie. Also, the aforementioned whatever his name is, what is it? The Shingle, or it's the Schindler, or what? The
Schinkel.
Simon
Benebjerg.
Benebjerg or something. He's very, very good. So just excellent acting all around. What?
Oh, I should have learned these names before we started.
That's all right.
Oh, and then there's the whole deal with Mads Mikkelsen's character, and the what was she like?
What?
Not quite a duchess of Schinkel. She's Schinkel's cousin, which is weird enough, but
there's another woman of royalty, and she is a person who is going to be betrothed, married to De Schinkel.
Yeah,
she has other ideas because she realizes what a complete a-hole De Schinkel is, and she wants a different life for herself.
Well, her and Mads are shoot, maybe we shouldn't get into that the whole kind of relationship that kind of goes and kind of falls apart there is interesting. I don't know if we should talk about it, but that's up to you guys. Because it would involve a spoiler to mention what it is.
No spoilers. The person who plays that woman, that noble woman who is promised to that De Schinkel guy, she is played by Christine Kuja Thorpe. And you might know her from a movie, an action thriller from 2021 called The Burning Sea. She was the lead actress in that, and she was great in that movie, and she's great in this. Actually, there's so many actors in this movie who deliver really good performances. It's an epic. It's really an epic. Bruce, your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, when I watched this, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for you guys to watch it, and I hope that you'll love it as much as I did. This is a hard movie because this is a movie, when you describe it, it doesn't sound as good as it is. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, he's out there and he's trying to grow things on this land, and there's an evil landowner, and people will be like, okay, this sounds kind of dry. This sounds like a masterpiece theater, if you want to go back to old style, something maybe not know about anymore. But this period piece and all these things, it just doesn't sound. I say, to me, the best way to think of it for people who are experienced with Game of Thrones, when Game of Thrones was operating at its best, it operated in this kind of sphere where you've got really clear stakes. You have people in power that are petulant and will wield their power in really cruel ways and really petty ways. And you have really great people to root for. And what I really love about the Mads Mikkelsen character is he is really bad in a lot of ways. Like, he's got his own pettiness in a sense. He's super stoic. He's super stoic. He has his rules. He has his goals, and nothing's going to get in his way. And his whole point is, and I don't know if we mentioned this specifically, but he is a bastard son of a nobleman. And it's taken him, whereas a nobleman will get to his captain position in, like, I don't know, they say like a
6 months.
a few months. It took him like 20 years or something to become
25
a
years.
captain.
Yeah.
So his goal to become a noble by getting this land developed is kind of his way to like reclaim his identity and to feel like he matters. And that is at odds with a whole bunch of other interpersonal things that are happening throughout this movie. And there are so many great stakes and so many great side characters and some real moments of high melodrama and not melodrama. There's some just straight up drama. And there are some great moments I'd love to discuss and I can't discuss. And I would just say there are at least three moments of violence that are just key to the story and have emotional punches. And I won't even want to talk about how they punch because that would tell you something about how the story is going. And I also think the ending of this movie, there's an ending that's fantastic. Or I would say there's a climax of something that happens to a character you've been waiting to happen to a character that is amazing. And then there's kind of an epilogue sort of.
Yeah.
Which is also hugely satisfying, I believe.
Powerful.
For the characters you've been rooting for or not rooting for throughout the movie. And once again, you can't overestimate the girl's role in this. It's fantastic. I love this movie so much. This is easily the best new movie I've seen this year so far. Easily.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's easy. Yeah, Eric.
Oh, I would point out, I think a lot of what drives this story is the Schinkel character.
Yeah. Because
he's such a hateable person that you just want Mads Mikkelsen to just choke the crap out of him. It's like just kick the ever living crap out of this guy, and then yeah, well, okay,
and then things happen. Yeah,
and then there's things that happen. So it's very interesting. I really love this movie so much. And what's interesting about the story is what also drives the story is what is Ludwig's perception of a dream. What is his dream? Is his dream really to become a nobleman? Bruce, you mentioned when the Schinkel says, hey, it only took me 6 months to get this noble ranking, and it took you 25 years. And what Ludwig says is, yeah, that's about right. That's the law. So at the beginning, he is actually on his tormentor's side because he is living by the law of the land. He realizes that noblemen get the fast track over him, and he's fine. It's a perfect thing like a soldier would do, right? So then as the narrative progresses, you realize Ludwig is presented with other options rather than his own straight ahead focused thing, which is very important because if he's not focused, the Heath may not be able to grow, right? He needs that strength. But then there are other elements that may make Ludwig might change his philosophies a little bit, which you actually wonder what really is the promised land. Love this movie. 5 stars from me. Yes, Eric.
Well, you say that the becoming the noble or whatever is his dream. I think that's kind of true. And without getting into it, I think he finds things that, like, you always have, like, when you're writing a story, what does a character want? And he wants to
become a baron.
This land and become a baron and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think in doing that, there's other things that he wants more than that. But he's so focused on that he kind of destroys other parts of his own life.
Of course, yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say here, but
yeah.
I think that's kind of the bigger message of this movie is like, don't be so focused on what you're doing that you miss out on these greater things that come from that.
Yeah.
Well, and this is to me such a great example of where you have a really complex character arc, more than one, but I mean, his is like the core one, right? But in the middle of a broadly entertaining epic story. And that is such a key thing to think about. Like, you don't see both of those together in movies a lot. And it's just, if they just do it, it's such a great, like, this is entertaining on its face without having that character arc. But having that character arc just gives it that depth and just makes it so awesome and so rewarding to watch as a viewer, because not only do you have those excitement moments and the kind of plot, like either achievements or downfalls, but you have this character that you are so invested in along with the others. There's at least, for me, there's one you're very negatively invested in, and there's at least 3 others that you're fully invested in. You know, if you're counting Kaylin as one of them. It's just fantastic.
And even the smallest characters are well etched, where when you see them, even for a few seconds, you go, "Oh, okay, that's." I remember when you did that. Okay, so all the little ones are pretty good too. And Bruce, you were mentioning some of the violent moments or some of the standout moments. This is also a genre film. There are things genre-wise or visually that you will not get out of your head after watching The Promised Land. And I'm not talking about sweeping vistas of the land. Just Bruce,
it operates more like a Western.
Yeah.
Than it does like a period piece. I mean, Westerns are period pieces too. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem as much like a lords and ladies kind of period piece as it does like a Western that's just in a totally different setting than you're used to seeing. As far as the kind of vengeance and evil guys and people trying to, stoic figures, all that stuff is in there.
Okay, so that is The Promised Land, Friday, February 2nd. Easy 5 stars for me. Final thoughts on The Promised Land, Eric, and then your rating.
5 stars. Go watch it. It's awesome.
Okay, Bruce.
5
stars for all of us. The Promised Land. It's in theaters, so if it's playing near you, please see it. I think this is one of those movies where
we'll be talking about it exactly a year from now on our collective top 5.
Yep.
I hate to say that. That is such an accurate thing. What Eric said. Eric is trying to mention that The Promised Land is one of those movies that may be buried, and we're going to have to bring it up a year later. And I feel bad because Eric's right. Eric's absolutely right. But if you heed our advice, 5 stars from all of us, best film I've seen this year so far. I don't know if Eric can co-sign on that. Eric, from your noggin, is there anything else that you've seen?
Mayhem month? And One More Shot.
Wow. Okay.
But
okay.
I mean, this is up there with those.
Okay. Mayhem, One More Shot, The Promised Land. That's a great list from Eric.
Yeah.
Let's just say, again, guys, can you just co-sign in theaters, or should they wait on digital? Why should they see it in theaters, Bruce? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty great looking movie, and I think that the emotions hit me pretty good just on my little screen, watching it at home, and I can imagine seeing it on a big screen with all the music and everything. This feels like it would hit pretty hard on a big screen.
It hit me pretty hard. Almost made me a better person. Fellow CinemAddicts members, if you ever see me and try to throw a branch or stick my way, don't expect me to pick it up. I'm not that kind of guy. But I still like the movie. Bruce and Eric, they're a stick picker-uppers. They're nice guys. So you're gonna get that reference in a second.
There was a real up moment at that part.
Yes.
Where it's like,
oh yeah, like a little crying there. Okay, yeah.
That was actually happy tears, because there's so many sad tears in this as well. Yeah. This just runs like you get all the feels, like good and bad, like happy and sad, all that stuff.
Angry,
yeah, definitely angry.
Sticks are used for kindling, not building relationships. I'm kidding. Okay, that is it for The Promised Land. Tell us, please, if someone is listening, tell me, Eric and Bruce, hit us up if you see the movie. Let us know what you think. I don't know what this next movie is. Eric has a possible recommendation along with The Promised Land this Friday. What's the movie you want to quickly review?
It's Scrambled, written, directed by, and starring Liam McKendrick. I'll just read the thing. Quintessential eternal bridesmaid, Nellie, constantly finds herself between weddings, baby showers, and bad dates when she begins to feel like the clock is ticking and is faced with bleak romantic prospects. I don't know that that's entirely correct. Basically, her parents are asking her why she's not having a kid, and she's in her 30s, doesn't want children. But then eventually she goes to her gynecologist or doctor, and they have did like an ultrasound on her. And normally this is a part in this type of movie where, oh no, she's pregnant, but it's oh no, you're not. If you want to get pregnant, you better do it quick, because you're not going to be able to make eggs pretty soon. So she decides she wants to freeze her eggs and hopefully in the meantime maybe just get pregnant. So she starts going through her Rolodex of past boyfriends. So it becomes kind of a high fidelity sort of thing. This throws in the concept of just becoming a parent, whether you want to or not, what do you want to do with your life? And she's kind of at a part where I have to decide now. I can't wait till I'm 40 to have a kid. I have to decide right now because I'm not going to be able to when I'm 40. And it kind of takes that concept and just kind of comes at it from a whole bunch of different angles. Hard, it's basically a romantic comedy. Funny most of the time, poignant in others, and I would go check it out because it comes in theaters this weekend.
The runtime's 100 minutes. The rating is R. Has a pretty interesting cast. Also, Leah McKendrick, like you said, is written and directed. She's the main star, right? And also it is, yeah.
Oh, and Clancy Brown's in it as their dad. He's not in it much, but when he is, he's pretty great.
Okay, yeah, Clancy Brown, also starring Andrew Santino and Adam Rodriguez. So some really good actors involved in this. What would you rate it?
I would go 4 stars on this. Might even go 4.5 because I really had a lot of fun with it.
What makes it a 4.5-star movie? This seems like look.
This is like one of those movies where like I haven't seen the trailer for it, but like just watching like how the movie starts off, like I imagine the trailer makes it seem I don't even know what I'm talking about the trailer. I never saw the trailer. But like early on in the movie, I'm like, okay, this is like one of those hipster movies that's like, too clever for its own good. But as it goes on, it kind of I don't know what I'm trying to say. It kind of elevates itself. Like the stuff it brings up, the interactions between the characters, and it just I don't know. It feels like it starts taking itself more seriously as it goes along, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it.
Is it funny?
Yeah, it's really funny. But again, that's comedy. What I think is funny, Bruce thinks is Bruce hates. So without, I mean, even if it's not funny at all, I think the story and like all the points it brings up is interesting to watch.
So
watching her go through her ex-boyfriends is very, very fun.
Oh, so Leah McKendrick as a writer, director, actress, that's some pretty good stuff, right? I mean, just the fact that she was able to do all three.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was great in this. Also we talked about with The Promised Land about how like the your focus on the thing that you miss the things around you. That's also one of the main themes of this. So actually wouldn't make a bad double feature with The Promised Land because the two are kind of kindred spirits in a way.
So you're saying after watching The Promised Land, you can try to give this one a shot?
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
Scrambled.
Scrambled's not nearly as heavy as The Promised Land, but hey, if both are playing in theaters, go watch The Promised Land. It's like I need to cool off a bit. Go watch Scrambled, and then go home. You're good to go.
Good to go. Okay, 4.5 stars.
Barbenheimer that.
Okay. 4 Scrambled. Very interesting.
The Scrambled Land, or whatever you want to call it.
4.5 from Eric Holmes. So, all right. So our collective top 5. Bruce, you want to start with our collective top 5?
Sure. The only thing I don't have in front of me is any IMDb stuff. So if we need to drop any like basic facts, help me out there. And I do want to point out to people that we will have a way for you to hear some other lists from us. We'll leave it at that. Are we actually saying where that's going to be yet?
Yeah, it's going to be a Force 5 podcast, Force 5 podcast. It's a Force 5 film podcast, Force 5 podcast. Yeah.
We have our personal top 10s on there, which have pretty much hardly any crossover, and I don't believe crossover with this list at all. So this is like bonus material, but this is all stuff that we agreed upon, and stuff that we agreed is probably either not getting enough notice or hardly any notice from the last year. So it's just going to give you, if you didn't hear us talk about it the first time, maybe just spark it in your mind to go check it out.
Okay.
And
Eric, how are we going to do that? Are we going to, so the number, are we going to go top to bottom or bottom to top? Like bottom to top? North, south, or south, north?
These aren't really in any particular order. Okay, cool. I don't have a number one of these. If you guys do, maybe do that last. But from my perspective, these are top 5 awesome movies that we all thought were great. So top 5 I don't awesome. Know that there's a one, but if you want to dub one, I will agree with whatever you two decide.
A number is a number. Let's just start it off with from the top first.
So our top movie is The Passenger. And I'm hoping Greg is pulling up information so he can give us some basic stats on The Passenger. I believe right now this is available, I want to say, on Amazon Prime, I think. Don't hold it to me, but I know it is.
It says streaming MGM Plus and Prime Video.
Okay, cool. Because I know it is definitely out there for everyone to get if you have one of those services. Most people do have Prime. Kyle Gallner's in this, and I don't remember his co-star. This is a fantastic...
Johnny Birchfield.
This is a fantastic sort of a road movie, sort of not a road movie, where, boy, this once again, I don't want to ruin it because when some of the things you find out in this movie are great. Basically, you have a character who's a mild-mannered character working in a fast food joint. He's being bullied by the people at the fast food joint. Kyle Gallner is a fellow worker at that joint who doesn't take the, let's just say he takes the bullying of the other person very not lightly. Very, very not lightly. Which leads to Kyle Gallner's character and this other mild-mannered character going on a bit of a road trip of sorts. They may or may not be on the run, or at least on the hide from the law. And they may or may not be doing kind of a tour of people from one of their lives. This is a very... what would you call it? It's like a weirdly toxic buddy movie of sorts.
Yeah,
it's
buddy
also
road trip thriller.
Buddy road trip, but they're not really buddies. But are they buddies? It's one of those movies that it pulls you by the shirt at the first moment of the movie and drags you along. And then once you're in for the ride, you really don't know where you're going, and there's always a threat of danger.
Passenger from 2023 is easily probably. I'm trying to think from 2023. It's the most tense movie I saw, just because of all the events that occur or the things that could occur due to the character of Benson, that immoral, pretty much evil character Benson, played by Kyle Gallner. This is one of those indie movies because of the strike. I don't think Gallner was able to really publicize it when it came out, and unfortunately, it needed a little bit more publicity because this is one of those hidden gems. Not so hidden now, though, because it is streaming on Prime Video. And I believe if you see this movie, this action thriller, I think you'll be surprised at how well crafted this movie is. It's not, when you say action thriller, sometimes you might think exploitative or empty calories, which is fine. Just sort of a cheesy junk food experience, which is great. This is a full meal. The ending is fantastic, and the acting by Gallner and Berchtold is just on another level. This is one movie I've only seen once, and I'm sure I'm gonna see it again. It's directed by Carter Smith, written by Jack Stanley. Eric, your thoughts on The Passenger?
Yeah. If you're ever watched like Tommy Boy or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and it's like, these are good, I wish it was a bit darker, The Passenger is the movie for you.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
I love Kyle Gallner, love Johnny Berchtold in this, love the scene like with his mom. So like as they go on, you get like more of I think Johnny Berchtold's kind of like as a character is, I don't want to say like generic as in like bad, but like generic, like his character hasn't really lived yet. And I guess that's kind of part of the problem. But Kyle Gallner's Benson's, the character Benson, he has lived. And as we go through, we get to kind of see a little bit of, this is okay. This might explain a bit why he is the way he is. They end up at the school. Oh, that definitely explains a bit of why he is the way he is. And the way it ends is pretty perfect for like how this movie goes. What do they call that? Where it ends exactly the way it should.
How it goes exactly. Well, it's just a perfect ending. It's a perfect ending. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, denouement. I don't know. Okay.
No, it's like like it couldn't have ended any other way than it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a phrase for it, and I can't think of it right now. But yeah, Passenger is pretty rad.
Our first pick is The Passenger. Next up is Amerikatsi. Here's a slug line. Charlie escapes the Armenian genocide as a boy by fleeing to the U.S., but then he returns as an adult and is arrested. He watches an Armenian couple from his prison cell finally learning about his homeland. Written and directed by Michael A. Gorgian. And again, just like that, Leah McKendry, who she wrote, starred, and directed Scrambled. This movie, written, directed, starring as a lead, Michael A. Gorgian. He plays the aforementioned character. His name's Charlie. He's in a prison labor camp, and his only way of actually living is by seeing that Armenian couple across the way from his sort of slit of a window thing. He has sort of like an area where he can actually see them, and he pretends what their life could be. And as the narrative progresses and he engages in their lives and imagining what their lives are, he becomes a little bit more enervated, even while in the midst of a prison sentence. So it seems it's just fantastic movie, just a great performance. It's one of these movies that it had more of a budget, possibly could have been an Oscar kind of awards push. It is that perfect, in my opinion. Eric, just quick thoughts on why Amerikatsi is a top 5 for us.
It's basically for all the same reasons why Shawshank Redemption is a top 5 for most people. It's just that kind of movie. It gets dark, gets sad, gets happy, gets all the things, and the relationship between Charlie and the
Prison
guard across the way, and the fact that they don't even really know or see each other. Like the relationship is one way. It's just a fantastic movie. And believe it is streaming. Well, you can rent it for $6. Well worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, well worth it. It's available for rent. Amerikatsi. You won't be disappointed by how amazing it is. Bruce, final thoughts on Amerikatsi? Is there no?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It also works, I think, in a lot of ways. Like, it's really dealing with the idea of how, as an isolated person in any sort of setting, that you kind of can project a life by viewing the outside world. And this could be, a person that watches lots of movies or, immerses themselves in video games. And in his case, he is in this totally stifled, literally trapped life. And there's a little broken area of the wall that he can look over to see this other family living their life, or a couple living their lives. And it has little elements of Rear Window too. There's this kind of this voyeuristic thing going on, but it's an amazingly empathetic movie, I think. And I think it operates on a super humanistic level. Like, it's hard to not sympathize with many of the characters in here, but especially him. It's just fantastic. It's great.
Production values are also great. You have to imagine a movie like this. How could they film such a beautiful movie with such a limited budget? Amerikatsi. It's our number 2. Number 3 is How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Here's a plot line. A crew of environmental activists plot a daring plan to disrupt an oil pipeline. They don't want to disrupt it. They want to blow it up. So look, the actual plot line of all these environmental activists going out to blow up a pipeline will trigger some movie goers just because of the subject matter. I don't know if I'm going to watch a movie the way I want to see it. I'm looking at it as a thriller, and on the pacing and thriller level, this was a perfect film for me. I was on the edge of my seat. The acting by all of the people involved, fantastic. Most of these are young actors, and I can't wait maybe 5-10 years from now to see where their careers are headed, because they all do such a great job. Directed by Daniel Goldhaber, and it has some really great moments. It's one of these movies. It's currently streaming on Hulu, and if it's available on digital or on demand, it's worth just buying, renting. So if you can actually take yourself away from the actual plot line of it and just look at it as a well-crafted thriller, I think you're going to have a great time with How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Bruce?
Yeah, probably of all the ones we have here, definitely the most politically audacious movie that we have on this list. And it will drive people away. There's certain people you just can't separate yourself from the thematics. And this movie doesn't separate itself from the thematics. It dives feet first into the thematics, and it's not going to shy away from its political point of view, but it does it in a movie that's also interesting. So that's the weird thing. You can't necessarily, you could just have a straight up politically diatribe hardcore movie about the subjects here, and even dive into their characters to try to show you the justification or not justification for their actions, and deal with that on a morality level without actually giving us a movie that was interesting. Very easily could be like that. But this movie also says, like, you know what? We're also going to make this a, quote, heist of sorts. Sure, it's not a heist. It's, quote, terrorist action, right? But it's presented in the formatics of a heist, where it's like you have the characters, they have their roles, you have to see step by step how they're going to achieve what they're going to achieve. There's dangerous moments all the way along. It works on that level, I think, as well. And that's what made it really successful to me, along with everything else that you already mentioned.
Eric?
You could see this as a thriller. You could see it as a heist movie. I see it as a warning. We're destroying the Earth, and there are people on the planet that are leaders that could maybe put an end to it, but they have the oil companies. They're in the oil companies' pockets, and so these group of people decide that, hey, if you want to make money, that's fine. If money is more important than the environment, boiling ourselves alive, that's fine. We're going to make it as expensive for you as possible to where you don't want to do it anymore. And I remember me and Andrew Martin were going back and forth on this because Andrew Martin absolutely hates this movie. And I totally get his point of view because I think he sees this as irresponsible. But I kind of think the other way because I think this is entirely irresponsible. I think what I'm getting from this movie is don't do the wrong thing, do the right thing that benefits us all, i.e. clean energy, start moving away from oil. But we're not going to do that. Cool. We'll blow up your pipeline then. Because what's the alternative? We all just wait for the environment to kill us. Oh, well. So I definitely see this as a warning. It's a very stark one. People are going to be offended by it. And if you are, I get it, but I just fall on the other side of it.
Cool. Very interesting takes on how to blow up a pipeline. So I just saw it as a thriller. Blind eye. I had a blind eye to it. What Eric was saying is absolutely
true. You had your eyes closed because it was all over the movie.
It was all over the movie.
I don't see nothing. What's going on?
Look. Hitchcock was talking about the ticking time bomb, ticking thing under the table. I'm thinking about the pacing of the movie. So that makes me a sociopath. Thank you very much. Speaking of sociopaths and psychos and killers, there's a movie called Misanthrope. I'm calling it Misanthrope because that's how Eric probably wants to call it. It was released in 2023. It's an hour and 59 minutes, but the real quote unquote title is To Catch a Killer, which makes the title a little bit generic. We all prefer the original version is Misanthrope. Here is the plot synopsis for To Catch a Killer. It centers on a police officer in Baltimore, played by Shailene Woodley. She teams up with an FBI's chief investigator to investigate a possible serial killer who is terrorizing the city. It's directed by Damien Sifron, and Sifron also is the co-writer with Jonathan Wakeham. Generic movie title. I've never seen. I love Shailene Woodley. From what I've seen, this is her best performance. This is a great performance. You might be thinking Silence of the Lambs. It has shades of that. Ben Mendelsohn is terrific. And going back to thrillers, this is one of those movies that you just can't miss. And you will miss it because To Catch a Killer seems like one of those straight to digital or on-demand films that you can just overlook and eventually say, I'll eventually get to it. No, but this is an elevated one in the genre. I think this is a perfect film. Tense, and the execution, especially the third act, as I use the word execution, third act is fantastic. Bruce, To Catch a Killer.
Yeah, what you said is exactly true. So there's a million cops catching killers or serial killer movies made and TV shows made. So this just goes to show you that you can take the most overplayed genre or the most overplayed type of story, and if you do it really, really well, with great acting, fantastic storytelling, great directing, it will still be riveting because the dramatic pull of the movie is riveting. And you mentioned the ending. I would mention a couple other points in here too. There's the opening murders, which are by a sniper on New Year's Eve, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
The strike of midnight is a fantastic opening to the movie, and it also introduces us to the Shailene Woodley character in a great way because you get to see her not only in action, but you get to start to see right out the gate her mindset and how she processes things. And that's what pulls her into the larger story. And then there's another scene. It's a seemingly small scene, but there's a scene in a mini mart where police are trying to possibly catch that killer. And it's it's just a microcosmic scene showing you how to make a tense scene well directed, well mapped out, and how you build that tension and how you really create stakes. And a big thing in a lot of these movies that really doesn't work, it's kind of like the Transformer movies. A lot of these kind of movies don't work because you don't understand the stakes, you don't understand the staging, you don't understand the map of the world you're in. This movie does the opposite. It gives you all the stakes and you know what's happening at all times. And it's quintessential sort of procedural. It's just fantastic. And if you like those kind of movies, like I said, Silence of the Lambs, oh, what a terrible movie to be compared to, right? How many can compare well with Silence of the Lambs? This is like one of the few movies I can think of in, 20 years that compares well with Silence of the Lambs. So it's an awesome movie.
Very detail-oriented film like Silence of the Lambs. You don't, these images or the stories of these kind of genre films, a lot of times a lesser film the story will just sort of either overwhelm you or you're just looking at it just for the visual and it just glazes over you. This is a very detail-oriented film, To Catch a Killer, that is. There's a surveillance sequence in the mall, which is really well done. Garbage dump. All these little things are very well done. Eric Holmes.
Yeah, Ben Mendelsohn, Shailene Woodley. I mean, Ben Mendelsohn, that's not saying anything. He's always great. Shailene Woodley's great in this. Sticks the landing, and definitely all the comparisons to Silence of the Lambs, and I would even say Zodiac, or just David Fincher's serial killer movies in general. Seven, Zodiac, The Killer, Mindhunter. It's got a little bit of that going in there. Like this is just great movie. And like Bruce said, it's a movie you've seen before, but this is done very well, and that there's something to be said about it. And streaming on Hulu, or you can rent it for like $5. Totally worth it. In fact, this is like one of those movies you buy because I could see just watching this over and over and over and over again.
Great film. Yeah, I agree with you. Again, if it's on Blu-ray, I'm going to buy it. To Catch a Killer. Out of all of our five, we're going to get to our fifth in a second. I feel To Catch a Killer is the one that is sort of a can't miss because it's a genre. This crime genre has a very broad scope. People who love it. There are people who love the crime genre stuff even more than any of us three. They're on ID. They watch all of these crime. It's for them. It's also for them as well. So this has a broad appeal. If you haven't seen To Catch a Killer, it's better in the title. It's Zentropa. Please go see it. Fifth and final one is Concrete Utopia. The plot is survivors from a massive earthquake struggle for a new life in Seoul. This Concrete Utopia is in reference to the utopia of this concrete building, high rise, that is standing tall amidst this catastrophe. Everyone outside of this high rise, this sky rise, they're trying to live. The survivors they're trying to live out there, and it's not going really well. So the main conflict is, what do the inhabitants of this high rise do to survive? Because they're also struggling. They may live in a really nice high rise, but they have to get food. They have to survive as well. Do they let the people outside in? Do they help other people? What about the people in their building? What if they have conflicts with their fellow neighbors? How is that going to meet out? How is that going to work within this fabric? So there's a lot of political stuff in this movie, social stuff, and there's violence, and there's an action thriller element. There's a melodramatic element as well. I think, Bruce, in your review, you mentioned that it really focuses on this young married couple, and you see the troubles of living in that skyrise through their eyes. And I think that's a great way to lens it. But there are other very memorable characters as well. Some really interesting twists with Concrete Utopia. This is, Eric was talking about rewatchability factor with To Catch a Killer. I can't wait to see Concrete Utopia again and again as the years progress because it's a very memorable film. Eric.
So the way that Concrete Utopia is just basically a microcosm of just humanity in general, you can maybe understand why someone would want to blow up a pipeline. We are terrible towards each other, and we always constantly work within our worst interests. And then I would say it's a cynical take on humanity, but I think it's more a realistic take. Granted, there's joy in humanity and love there too, which is also represented here, and kind of how that can kind of overcome things sometimes, not always. And what cannot be overstated, and this goes nothing against the social commentary of this movie, the effects in this movie are fantastic. I think Godzilla -1 was nominated for Best Effects at the Oscars. This probably should have been too, because I think they're just as great.
Okay, Bruce.
And streaming on Viki for $6 and nothing else. Hopefully this gets wider release, but VIKI, find that. You can rent this on there. Totally worth it. If you can see it in theaters, good luck. But I mean, if you can, go for it. This movie looks great. It is great.
Bruce.
I think if we've had any common thread in some of the movies we've loved this year that for whatever reason aren't getting all the attention, one of them is titles. once again, this title, like, what does that mean to the average person? I think it's probably confusing to the average person. That's why we're explaining it, I guess. But yeah, this movie, all the things you said are true. This does essentially what, I don't know how many seasons of The Walking Dead has tried to do. This does in what, a 2-hour and 15-minute movie, if I remember correctly, about maybe 20. And it probably does it better, and it probably does it in a more complex way without having zombies. It has, we talked about earlier, all the emotions in The Promised Land. This has all the emotions too. It has humor, it has karaoke, it has, violence, it has evil, it has, hidden contexts. It's got just straight up action. It's got tragedy. It's got everything you could possibly want. It's got really well-drawn characters, messages if you want them. What can you say about this movie other than it just is great storytelling and great, this is also in a way great quote sci-fi, right? It isn't sci-fi, but it's that idea of like, what if? This is a what ifs kind of story. Like, what if this happened? Lord of the Flies is another thing that people compare this to, right? You get a situation that is a little bit outlandish, but not very outlandish. What would happen to human beings stuck in that situation, and what does it tell us about the world? It's just great. It's fantastic. I think this is one that just kind of hit us all sideways when it came across our I didn't know what it would even get. I think I already told you, I said I thought it was going to be a documentary on apartment buildings or something, and I didn't even know until I watched it what it was. And I started watching it and I was thinking like, oh my gosh, where did this movie come from? I guess South Korea is the answer, So.
Also, to tie this into The Promised Land, there is a death in Concrete Utopia, which actually parallels a death in The Promised Land. Both shocking, right, Eric?
Is it the?
Yeah. There is.
Yep.
Wow. So, by the way, both excellent movies. So Eric was talking about going.
Good catch, because I'm like, what's he talking? Oh, yes.
Actually, there was no catching there. There was only throwing.
They did not catch that killer.
So very good rim shot. So yeah, that's it. Those are our top 5. Let me go again. The Passenger, Amerikatsi, How to Blow Up a Pipeline to Catch Killer, aka Zentropa, and finally Concrete Utopia. On IMDb, guys, it says here Concrete Utopia followed by Badland Hunters. And here's the thing, Badland Hunters, 2024, it's streaming on Netflix, and here is a plot line. None of the characters from Concrete Utopia are in this, but it says, when an earthquake turns Seoul into a lawless badland, a fearless huntsman goes on to rescue a teenager from a mad doctor who held the teenager captive in a camp full of dangerous cultists. So I think the whole earthquake plot line, I don't know if it's...
It sounds like the American remake of Concrete Utopia.
Right? We'll see. It's streaming on Netflix. It has a 6 out of 10 rating. I don't know if it's good. I'm guessing it might not be as good as Concrete Utopia. A different director. But again, Eric was mentioning where you can rent it. It's one of these movies that I hope this is a reason why we have the top 5. There are so many movies that we cover that slip under the cracks, and hopefully you check out one of these, if not all of these 5 movies from our CinemAddicts collective top 5. All right, before we go, Eric, final thoughts?
Yes, all 5 of these movies are great. As long as the ones as well as the ones we talk about on the upcoming Force 5 podcast, because we all have our own individual lists on those. And I guess, hey, 2023, pretty good year. Anyone who says otherwise, I'll point you to these 5 movies and probably 30, 40 more.
Yeah. And because we could probably say Mayhem, One More Shot, and The Promised Land are just examples of bangers. I mean, even Scrambled. Do you even like Scrambled?
Well, those are all from those are all from this year.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just talking about last year. Like this year's shaping up pretty good, at least for me. Like, I know, there's a couple of movies that I love that Bruce doesn't, but there's also a couple of movies that I love that Bruce also does. So,
And I can't.
That's got to say something. This is supposed to be the crap month.
No,
we're getting bangers after.
Yeah, there's a bangers. There's a Scott Adkins, Frank Grillo, Dermot Mulroney banger called Lights Out, which has
Scott Adkins
Perky's name
within a week of each other.
Yeah, it's Bruce Perky's name written all over it. We just can't wait till Bruce Perky does that review by himself, right, Eric? You nominate Bruce Perky to review Lights Out? What do you think?
No, I wish he would like it as much as I do, but I would recommend you watch One Shot, because One Shot is one that I think he might not like, but the One Shot's the one that like right? It. Oh yeah, One More Shot. If he's gonna like any of them, One More Shot might be that one.
Bruce Perky is the esteemed critic over here at CinemAddicts, and he is very insightful and very eloquent with his words. But if you really want Bruce Perky, even though he watches about 10 to 12 movies a week, not including the series that he does, or full-time job, full-time dad, full-time husband, full-time great guy, please, there is a lot of holes missing in Bruce Perky's life. Those holes being distributed by Lionsgate and Saban Films. If you want him to cover more of these movies, please hit all of us up, because I think Bruce, a part of you is really aching for those Saban.
He's dying inside. Is that what you said?
All right. Final thoughts from Bruce Perky.
All I want to say is, this week I also watched the entire series, The Curse, which I know Anderson's been going on and on about. I would just say the finale of The Curse is one of the most surreal things ever put on television. And if you can make it to the end, it is quite something.
Okay. If you can make
it on TV.
What did you say?
What? No?
You said most surreal things on television. Wasn't Twin Peaks like more so than Twin Peaks?
It approaches that level.
Oh.
If you get to the end, Bruce, should they
if you even get to the end, there's a lot of it's a hard road to follow for a lot of people. I'll just tell you that.
Should they even get to the start? That's a real question. Is it even worth
put it this way? I started it. I made it an episode and a half through it, and I bailed. And I heard Anderson and
Avery.
Thank you. My brain was lost there for a second.
Yeah.
Avery going on about it so much. I was like, I'm missing something here. I've got to give it another try. And then this last week, I went through the next 8 episodes. I guess it is. There's 10 total episodes. And I still wasn't prepared for the final episode. I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen there. It was like, what is this show doing?
Did you waste your time watching The Curse then?
No, I think it's actually pretty brilliant filmmaking. I don't know if, it can be maddening, and it's gonna definitely be not people's flavor in a lot of ways, because these people you may not want to spend that much time with these people. I'm thinking Eric may be one of the people that can't spend this much time with those people. But I'm telling you, the ending is something crazy.
Okay. All right. That is The Cursed. I believe it's on it's streaming on, I'm guessing, Showtime? What is it?
I think it's Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus. Okay. The Cursed. The Curse or The Cursed? The Curse.
Curse.
Just The Curse. Emma Stone.
It does star Emma Stone and Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie. And this is a Fielder Safdie mind meld that created this thing. So it's something.
Is it more Fielder or Safdie?
I wouldn't say. Well, there's more Fielder in it performing, but the Safdie stuff, I think the flavor of what they bring and what he brings as a character is some of the magic in this series.
Rate it 1 to 5 stars.
I'm probably 4 stars for the series as a whole, but the finale is 5 stars.
Okay. The Curse. I don't know, Eric Holmes, if you have Paramount Plus, but maybe that might be worth watching.
Don't blame me. Give us some of the blame to Anderson.
Well, I think life should be fair in our CinemAddicts universe. If Eric Holmes starts to wander the dark side and go watch and spend 10 hours to watch The Curse.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna watch The Curse just so whenever I recommend a movie that Bruce hates, I can lord the curse over him. Go, you recommended The Curse. You take what I give you.
I still blame Anderson. It's not me. I blame Anderson.
We have to work out Eric Holmes watching The Curse is equivalent to 4 or 5 Scott Adkins movies that Bruce Perky has to watch. So I'm just saying, we're going to work out the equation.
Minimum.
We're going to work the equation, and you're going to figure out what the curse is for you, Bruce. Okay? So we'll figure that out next week.
That would probably be Nolan films. That would probably be a bigger curse.
Oh, but that
All right, Bruce. Write down Tenet. Yes, again.
And Oppenheimer.
All right, we love Nolan. Everyone except Bruce. We'll see you here next week on CinemAddicts, and of course, there's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining CinemAddicts.